Okay, I think I'm live. I am live. Um, so welcome to Firebug. Our plan is to clone apps with React, Firebase, and whatever else we need. Our first app is planner.now.sh, which is made by Ryan Florence. It's basically a glorified to-do app. And we won't get to anywhere at this level because I'm not Ryan Florence today. But we will get started, and then you'll see in the future episodes how we get closer and closer towards a real functioning app where you can be productive on. Wonderful. So the prerequisites, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to assume that you know JavaScript. I'm going to assume that you know React. We may cover some more basic stuff in this video. I'm also going to assume that you know a little bit of Firebase, but I'll try to explain as much as I can. Obviously, I may know things that I forget to explain. And if you are aware of that, yell at me. I am at Swix on Twitter, or you can follow Firebug Fam on Twitter as well. This is the cheerful little Twitter account that I have. So Firebug Fam, or you can go to firebug.netlify.com, and then that's this very, very simple site. Obviously, all these things are going to grow as we proceed. My goal is to just get these out and hopefully help people, and that's about it. I mean, I learned a lot through the process. Good. So we're gonna get started. I have a lot of shortcuts, so I'm also gonna try and explain them here so that I don't have to explain them in future. Currently, I have an open source folder where I do all my open source stuff. This is obviously going to be open source. So let me just get that out of the way. We're going to start off with this. Just make a basic to-do with a Firebase backend. And hopefully this video will be much shorter than my first video, which was an hour long. First I'm going to do create React app. And I'm going to call this Firebug Planner. And while that's going, I'm also going to talk a little bit about Firebase. You can see I have a demo project over here that I set up based on my previous example. I'm just going to blow it away and set it up again from complete scratch, because why not? Is this done yet? No, it's not done. Right, so while this is all setting up, you can go ahead to console.firebase.com. Hopefully you're logged into Google. And you can set up a new app, Firebase, Firebug Planner. Call it whatever you like, I don't care. Wow, this is taking a while. Okay, I guess I was a little out of date with my yarn. So Firebase is a backend as a service. It's amazing. It means that the barrier to entry for making full stack apps, especially for front-end engineers, is much lower because Google will literally work for you for free. There are some strings attached, but as far as you're concerned as a beginner, it is the perfect place to get started. And then, as you need to wean yourself off of Firebase, you can do that by learning the backend at that point in time, but not before. So here we started up our initial Firebase instance. I've called it Firebug Planner. We're also going to be using the database today. Firebase has two forms of database. And the first is the realtime database. That's the startup that Firebase was before Google acquired them. And then there's Cloud Firestore Beta, which is going to be the future version of Firebase databases. We're going to use the real-time database today just because it's slightly easier, but it's going to be pretty similar. So we'll be fine. So I've set these up. I've defined these as public for now because we're just making an app that anyone can edit. But we'll figure out how to make this. We'll figure out how to lock this down in future. These are the rules, which means just anyone can, they always return true when everyone's trying to read, always return true when everyone's trying to write. We're going to want to try to put some authentication on that. to make sure people don't mess around and put some stuff they shouldn't. This is taking a while. I really should have done the yarn before I started this video, but no bother. What else can I tell you about our plan? So we've done this, which is essentially talk about prerequisites, create React app, start a Firebase project, Firebase real-time database. Oh, the other thing that we're going to use is React-Firebase. So Firebase is a standalone project, right? React is a standalone project. And sometimes, and we need some glue code to put things together. And that glue code, you're gonna, if you're familiar with React at all, you're very familiar with glue code because everyone likes to make their own standalone databases to have as much mileage as possible on their code. So then the burden goes on to users and beginners to learn how to glue things together. And that's probably the most annoying part of JavaScript, which is everything is like separate and you have to glue stuff. This is done, so I'm just CDing in. And then I do code dot, which helps me launch VS Code. I'm using everything that WestBoss uses, so you can go to westboss.com/uses if you like any of the fonts and stuff. I do not answer those questions. Okay. I also use a lot of shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to call these out as I go along. So to bring these up, I'm doing control backtick. But I'm not going to name all of them. I'm going to hopefully have a tool later to summarize all these things. So where were we? Okay, so we were just introducing React-Firebase, which is the glue code between Firebase and React, right? So we're going to have these two things separately, and we need to know how they both work together. I accidentally clicked there. And let me just npm start just to show you the familiar create React app screen. So we need the glue code, and this is very much similar to the React Redux connect function in the sense that you have it's a higher order component that connects some mapping of props to some either value or function, and then it connects you to a DOM component, even though that word is out of style now. A DOM component which takes the props and does things with them. So connect, then mapping function, and then DOM component. So that's essentially what we're going to focus on for this video. Is this done? This is not done. My computer is so slow today. Jesus. I just did a restart too. Okay, so I think I'm just going to get started coding. Hopefully I've answered all the questions. Right now, we're just going to do a basic to-do app, but with a Firebase backend, right? So that will get us started, and then in the future days we can add more functionality. But I just want to get you to an MVP. We're not going to reach here in one standing jump. My aim is to make these videos as short as possible, but my shitty computer is not really helping in that goal. Here we are. I don't know how many minutes in, and we've just had a create React app. So I need to move faster. All right, component. Make a folder. I'm going to call it main, I guess. Oh, I'm just going to call it whatever, main. All right, we'll call it main. All right, so, and then I'm going to do a whole bunch of copying over stuff. I try to type as little as possible. This may or may not be advisable strategy. It's up to you, but works for me because I don't have to think. Thinking is at a premium these days, right? So I'm just refactoring. I'm splitting this app up so that I have a top-level app component, and then a bottom level, and then a lower main component, which I export as main.js. Let me just check if my prettier code is enabled. I like prettier code enabled in VS Code. If you don't know what that is, look it up. And then in my app component, I'm going to import the thing I just created. Why is this not working? See what happens there. nothing changed, but I have it in a separate app file now. Okay, cool. So, so now we're gonna have to incorporate all these things: Firebase, React Firebase, and have a sort of to-do list up and running. So to do that, I'm gonna open up another terminal because I need to install libraries. Notably, Create React app uses Yarn, so I'm not gonna use npm install. If you don't know the difference, obviously look it up. And we're gonna install Firebase and React-Firebase. I keep clicking on those things and it keeps redirecting me. I need to stop doing that. All right, so God. All right, so that's fetching. In the meantime, I can probably start using it. So what I'm gonna do is show you the provider pattern, which is exactly the same as React Redux, where you have a top level provider and it has all the Firebase authentication stuff going in, and then it provides through the React context all this stuff below, so that the connect function can start using them without all this mangly like wiring up stuff. And it is a singleton as well. All right, so I'm going to import provider from React Firebase. This thing is still going, by the way. I'm just not running or saving it. I'm just rushing ahead. And I'm going to provide this thing to my app. So provider. I should also mention that, well, never mind. I'll talk about it later. Okay, so, and then the other thing I need to provide is what this thing, Firebase, is called, right? So I need const Firebase app, whatever. And I also need initialize app from Firebase. Good. So that's all my importing done at the top level, right? Which is the app.js. And then inside main.js, which is where I do all the logic. So hopefully that will be a sensible structure. Where I get all my credentials is from my Firebase console, which we just set up. I can go over to projects overview and add Firebase to web app, and this is all my stuff. I don't actually technically need all this, but there's just so much I don't want to think about it. So I just copy the whole thing. Probably there's some best practice. I don't know it. If you do, please let me know. And in the meantime, we have set up Firebase on our app. Nothing's changed here yet because we haven't, used any data. But our components, everything under provider now knows about Firebase, and we can start using that. So over here, we can start importing the connect function. So for example, over here, love well-written readmes. This one's maybe not so beginner friendly if you don't know what you're doing, but for people who do, it's good enough. So the connect function takes as a first argument something that's like, map props to Firebase. What a terrible typing. Right. And the things on the left are the props that main receives. Let's call this main. And then the things on the right are either values, which correspond to Firebase values, or they're functions. And if they're functions, then they are called with the requisite stuff. And most likely the functions will use something like a ref, and they'll operate on the data. Once the data is operated, because Firebase is reactive, it immediately updates this again. So I don't need to hook up internal state. I'm basically outsourcing React state to Firebase. Very cool. And how do I do like a very initial like hello world? If I do like a hello world set value, component did mount this dot props dot value I from main. So if I do this, it will mount main, and then it'll call this props.setValue, and that will call this thing, which this function which I've defined. And over here, it's going to take hi from main and then stick it in the ref called hello world. The ref hello world is going to be transmitted back from Firebase into my app, and that's going to be translated into value where I can finally consume it as this value. Okay. So if I do that, that is going to actually fire off, and it's going to go hi from main. And my Firebase database, Firebase real-time database, I have to be very precise about these terminology because they have two databases. My Firebase real-time database now has hello world and hi from main. So this is where you read in a little bit about the structure of Firebase real-time database, but essentially everything is stored as JSON. So everything is an object, and in particular, there's no arrays. Everything's an object. But you can nest indefinitely. Actually, that's not true. There's a limit to that. But essentially, I hope you see how that data flow works. Okay, so we've done a lot. We've declared a value, and then we've declared a operation to set that value, and then we've actually used that in our component, which is fantastic. So what next? We are going to set up our to-do list. The first thing I want to set up is a method, is a way to incorporate, I guess, what am I saying? A way to submit values so that I actually have values to talk about. So I'm going to define a form here. It's dot form handle submit, I guess. And then I'm going to have an input type equals text, placeholder, be productive. Whoa. And I'm going to give it a name, new to do. Let's define the form handler. Let's handle submit. I'm using all the fancy Babel plugin goodness. If you're not aware of public class fields, please read up on them because they are definitely awesome. Event. Prevent default. If you don't know what prevent default does, please read up as well. This just prevents refreshes. And then I'm going to call this dot add to do. Dot props dot add to do with e.target dot new to do, right? Because e.target is the form, and then within the form I have a thing called new to do dot value, and then I'm going to clear the value for the next value to be entered. So I think that is it for the submission. I do need to define the value. Let's comment this out because that was just for demonstration purposes. And then I need to define a value over here. So I receive a value, right? And then I say store it within to-dos. What is the structure of my to-dos? That's where I should probably define what's in the to-dos and what is not in the to-dos. As far as I can think of, there is a date. So new date. I think. And then there's a text, which is the value that was passed in. And then there's a state, which is complete, which is true or false. False. That's it for now. I don't want to get too complicated. Obviously, you can go nuts. And the last time I kind of went nuts, which is not good. So let's see what problems I have. I need to put commas in places. That is a thing. Right, good. So it says hi from main, and it says be productive. Now I'm going to split this out over here, and I want to emphasize that Firebase is a reactive and real-time database. So what happens over here is I type in hello world, and it shows up in the to-do reference, which we defined over here, to-do. And inside to-do, I pushed a new object, right? And that object is now a child. The push function assigns a key, which is guaranteed to be unique. And within the key, the value is this object. So there's a key value pair here, but it looks like a nested object. I could nest further if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. So all right, I'm gonna submit another thing. This is going well. Okay, so as you can see, there's no arrays. These are just objects with two separate different keys, and this is kind of how it looks. So our next task is to display these things. So I'm going to go ahead and display them. And I do really want to emphasize the things on the left become props for our components. The things on the right are what they're called in Firebase. So here it's named to do. I have to name it to do here. Here I could name it to do, which is very common, but it might confuse you. So I'm just going to go ahead and call it to do's, just to show you I can name it whatever I want. And I display it over here. It's going to come in as a props, and I display it over here with a unordered list. Well, and to-dos. If there are to-dos, which there may not be. And here's a tricky part because this to-dos is an object, right? An object with two things. I want to treat it like an array, so I want to do a .map, but I can't. So I have to do object.entries or object.keys. I like entries because that's the fancy new thing, and I'm practicing that. And then I want to destructure those into keys and items. The keys, as you recall, are the randomly generated things. So with the keys, I now have a literal key for React, so React is happy. And then I have the item, for which I have item.text. So prettier than like that. Every time I save, I have prettier telling me that I'm an idiot. Did prettier like that? Did it work? No, it did not work. I need to close my parentheses. Here I'm using array destructuring. It's very handy. That's what I'm doing for the results of the object.entries. Oh, God. All right, pretty like that. Okay, good. So why am I not getting anything? I should be getting something already because I have things in. Oh, I'm not returning something. You know, try to be good about these things, but it's just, right. Hey, there we go. So these two objects are being displayed here. And if I enter more new things, hello, now what? That's good. But then I have an append only to-do list. And my last thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to display a delete button. So how do I want to do this? Yeah, why not? I'm just going to have an X. Button. Again, I'm very much assuming that you know React, so I'm not explaining a lot of these to the degree that I could. But just yell at me in the comments if you don't understand anything. And this is not super necessary, but I'm just being a good boy and being explicit. Because I could just call this stuff props or whatever here. I don't need this anymore. Thank you for your service. I am. What is this? Oh, comma there. That syntax is just weird. So I get a key, right? And I know my address is arrived at by slashes. So Firebase has this thing of addresses of the object. If you want to, you can read more with the inside the docs. Just go here and then go real-time database and then read and write data. And that's where you'll find how to reference different levels of things. But my objective is to make the most of your time, so I'm not going to explain that any further than I already did. Okay, so now I have X's everywhere, and when I click on them, things go away. So that's it. That's a to-do list. Oh, one more. Let's actually toggle things on and off because I'm a masochist, I guess. So that is going to need some kind of selector, I think. How am I going to do this? Okay. Well, let's explore. I need some sort of checkbox. What is the checkbox? I'm looking things up. You can't see it because I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't know these things. But it shouldn't take you very long to do these. Input type. And then value, I guess, equals to it's checked, right? I am so not good at this right now. Yeah, it is value. Okay. No. Checked. Okay. So the value is just the is it done or not, which I don't care about. I just need to show if it's checked equals to item dot is complete. Okay. Then I also need to handle on click. And then same thing, this dot check item key, whatever. And then same thing over here. This one's a little trickier because I need to modify an existing, instead of remove, I gotta do something. This is where we read the docs. La la la, la la la, la la la. Get started, read and write data, updating. I can just update specific fields, can I? Right? All right, so I haven't rehearsed this one. I'm just gonna wing it. Luck. Oh, so I probably need to use this as a toggle. New check status, whatever. There's probably cleaner ways to do this, but I'm not super bothered by it because all this will be thrown away at some point as we figure out how to code the app. Oh, see if that works? Of course not, nothing works. I need self-closing tags for inputs. Just like, I need something to remind myself that that's a thing. I always mess that up. So if I check this, please, this dot props to check to do is not a function. What are you talking about? It says check item here, but it says check to do here. See, I'm not even consistent with my own. All right, well, I'm gonna clear this console. Please be good to me. And I can see that things are checked. So if I look at the corresponding, this is the second one. So look at the corresponding thing, is complete equals true. And if I, okay, my screen is too small, but if I click it over here, you can see things update to become false. So there you have it. This is a to-do list with React and Firebase. Go forth and conquer. Also follow Firebase fam for more. Firebug fam is the Twitter account. And subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you around. Bye.